Saturn's moon, Iapetus, could have been artificially made by extraterrestrials. It has a ridge running all the way around it, almost like a straight line, as if something has been welding two pieces together. This is just one of the NASA images of the ridge, and it goes all the way around the circumference of the moon. And is this a naturally occurring geological phenomenon on a celestial rock? It looks as if it's welded, and you can see this even looks much more manufactured or constructed if you look at it. Now, what's going on here? Our solar system, as we know, is fascinating, and the more we see with these advanced telescopes, the more questions arise. Now, there's still much that we don't know, but what makes one even more curious is knowing the organizations and people operating highest levels of security clearances probably know a whole lot more than we do, of course. Now, that being said, if you're independently curious, there are more than enough sources available to satisfy your curiosity. If you want to investigate, at the very least, you could get access to the best telescope and stare at the other planets, our moon and the other moons of the planets. But perhaps the best thing we could do is simply sift through literature, and we'll find no shortage of strange anomalies that have been discovered in space. There's no shortage. It's also like you will come across the tremendous amounts of controversy that come with these discoveries. Strange findings have been subject to ridicule within the mainstream, but that has not stopped hundreds, if not thousands, of researchers and insiders from all the backgrounds from continuing their study and education. Now, looking at this ridge, the more you see it, the more you can't take your eyes off of it. Now, we have the moon of Iapetus, of Saturn, and it's been the subject of recent peer-reviewed research. On more than one occasion, researchers have found what appears to be strange, large artificial structures on our moon, on the backside of our moon, the side we can never see unless we send probes and astronauts around it. To complicate all of the information regarding the moon, we have statements from a number of credible sources in the forms of witness testimony from high-ranking intelligence and military people. And it's safe to say that something strange is happening on the moon. And there are those who believe that we are shown, what we're shown and told was heavily sanitized, or let's put it this way, covered up, and so that it was for certain eyes only. And let's not forget about Buzz Aldrin being so outspoken about a monolith on one of the moons of Mars. Now we have Iapetus, the Saturn moon. It could be the most puzzling. And this is by Humans Are Free, Alexander Light. He says, which brings me to the topic of this article. Iapetus, one of Saturn's moons, is what's quite unique about it is the fact that it has what appears to be a huge mountainous ridge that measures up to 20 kilometers tall, twice the size of Everest, approximately 200 kilometers thick, and it can be seen running exactly along the equator for well over 3/4 of the moon's entire circumference, but it's safe to assume around the entire planet. It was discovered in 2004, early in the Cassini mission. Quote, first let me set the stage. Iapetus is bizarre in a lot of ways. It has a yin-yang surface of dark and bright materials. It's unexpectedly flat pole to pole. It seems to have an excessive number of large impact basins, and it has a mountainous ridge up to 20 kilometers tall, running exactly along its equator for well over 3/4 of its entire circumference. And the existence of the ridge was revealed very early in the Cassini mission in an encounter at the end of 2004, end quote. This is by Jim Mars, Our Occulted History. Now, a number of prominent researchers and scientists have hypothesized that our own moon is artificial in nature, so they have done with other moons like Iapetus. That being said, we don't hear much about these theories and the credibility of the people behind them. They're completely ignored by the mainstream simply because they don't fit with mainstream narrative. Now, we don't know about our moon, but this thing here with iapetus, I mean, that's more than very weird and strange. Now, the more you look at it, the more you say it can't be normal. Can't be a normal geological formation, because it looks to be welded or constructed. Now, when talking about Saturn in general, Norman Bergram comes to mind, and you'll see his video just before this one, a couple of videos back, The Ring Makers of Saturn. Norman Bergram is a NASA scientist, and he says, Dr. Bergram says he's worked for Ames Research Laboratory and National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics, NACA, and Lockheed Missiles and Space Company, now known as Lockheed Martin. He then went on to found Bergram Engineering and Research, and you can view some of his publications for NASA, where he worked for more than a decade, in the link in the article here. He states that something extraterrestrial could be creating the rings of Saturn in an interview with Project Camelot. In the interview, he also reveals images he has seen regarding the moon landings and an extraterrestrial presence, and he refers to them as tall, dark people, very dark, he says. But moving back to iapetus, of the moon of Saturn, one of the moons, Jim Marrs points out in his occult history that it's one of the moons of Saturn that's considered by many researchers to be artificial. And he writes, iapetus, the planet's third largest moon, has puzzled researchers since its discovery by Italian astronomer Giovanni Domenico Cassini in 1671. And like our own moon, iapetus is in a near-perfect circular orbit, and one side always faces its planetary host. Oh, I didn't know that. Only one side of iapetus faces Saturn. Just like our moon, only one side of our moon faces our Earth. And he goes on to say, but even more puzzling are square and hexagonal craters that, according to one former NASA employee, appear to be gigantic artificial planets holding the moon together, making iapetus resemble nothing so much as a Death Star in George Lucas's film Star Wars, end quote. The point is, no one can adequately explain this huge and what appears to be the tallest mountain range in our entire solar system. The ridge, that is, that goes along the equator of iapetus. As far as we know, it's impossible to hypothesize exactly how it was formed and why it's confined exactly to the equator. The cause of the moon's unusual inclined orbital path is also completely unknown. This is a common theme you'll find among planetary scientists regarding these pictures. And here's what Bergram published about iapetus in his Ring Makers of Saturn. He was adamant later in his life about getting the truth out regarding extraterrestrial things, quote unquote, happening around Saturn and its moons. Authors Tobias Owens and Donald Goldsmith hypothesized that, quote, the unusual moon is the only object in the solar system which we might seriously regard as an alien signpost, a natural object deliberately modified by an advanced civilization to attract our attention, end quote. The same has been hypothesized again about our own moon, as Carl Sagan once pointed out, quote, it is not out of the question that artifacts of these visits still exist, or even that some kind of base is maintained, possibly automatically, within the solar system to provide continuity for successive expeditions. Because of weathering and the possibility of detection and interference by the inhabitants of Earth, it would be preferable not to erect such a base on the Earth's surface. The moon seems one reasonable alternative. Forthcoming high-resolution photographic reconnaissance of the moon from space vehicles, particularly of the backside, might bear these possibilities in mind, end quote. The deputy manager of the 95 Clementine mission to the moon said it was really a reconnaissance mission to check out the bases on the backside of the moon. This is Brandenburg, linked in Moon articles above. And in 1962, NASA scientist Gordon MacDonald published a paper stating it's more likely that the moon is hollow than not. MIT's Sean Solomon further this statement citing knowledge of the moon's gravitational field as evidence for the assertion. So yes, strange things seem to be going on in our solar system, especially with the moons. The name iapetus is interesting. I often wonder about Greek mythology and other areas like anthropology and how much information has been kept from us. Things are clearly not as we've been told. If we ever openly go to these places in our solar system, we could all imagine jaw-dropping discoveries would be made. Perhaps the black budget would already world has already made some, perhaps we're not even allowed to know of. Now the takeaway, the conclusion, he says, anytime I write about anything extraterrestrial, it's always to encourage others to think about the implications of contact or the realization that we are not alone and have never been alone. The extraterrestrial hypothesis as an explanation of the UFO phenomenon is valid for many reasons, because it's the one that seems to hold the most evidence. And at the end of the day, our planet and its well-being is what we really need to focus on, and perhaps looking at Earth from an extraterrestrial perspective ourselves, if we could all beam up in spaceships, would perhaps change the way we look at the planet and ourselves as the human race. Perhaps this greater realization may contribute to a big change in perspective that we need right now in order to change our world. Who knows, the implication touch all aspects of humanity. And this is by Arjun Walia, Collective Evolution, and it's on Humans Are Free, Creative Commons. So tell me what you think. What do you think this thing is? Is this a normal occurrence, a geological occurrence, or do you think it's somehow put together like two pieces together welded in the middle? I have no idea, but that's what it looks like to me. There you go again. The highest mountain range in our solar system. Please leave your comments, subscribe and share, and ring the bell for more updated videos. Thank you for your support. If you'd like to join me on my Patreon account, you will hear content not covered by mainstream media. These riveting stories will be based on my research, and I will state my opinions and give my personal insight on diverse and controversial subjects and world events not covered by mainstream media, and not supported by YouTube guidelines. So whatever I have on my Patreon, most of those will not be on my YouTube channel. Please consider becoming a member today. More of the most significant and important videos will be on my Patreon channel. Your support helps me to continue my research and keeps this YouTube channel alive. And we depend on your support, your generous charity, because we help economically challenged families here in Athens, Greece, in Kapota, and we also help the young generation with university tuition and the community around our church. Thank you.